Superheroes live and die on the quality of their villains, so it's no wonder Batman has stood the test of time and change of mediums, considering he has the finest rogues gallery around. The Arkham series wouldn't be anywhere near as revered as it is if not for representing such a variety of Bruce Wayne's biggest baddies. So with that in mind, I'm Sai for WhatCulture.com, and here is every Arkham villain ranked from worst to best. Number 40, Electrocutioner. Those who have played the oft-neglected prequel in the quadrilogy Arkham Origins will know exactly why this glorified nightclub bouncer places where he does on this list. Out of 8 assassins who answer the call of Black Mask's bounty on Batman, Lester Baczynski, a simple-minded brute set apart from the common thug only by his electrically charged gloves, takes on the caped crusader aboard Penguin's ship, The Final Offer. And it goes exactly how you'd expect. He goes down in one spiky gauntleted punch. While it's funny to see the stage set for a boss fight only for it to be over in the blink of an eye, you have to wonder what Electrocutioner was even thinking bothering to show up that night. The other villains have no time for him either, so little so that Joker ends up kicking him out of a window to his death. On the plus side, Batman then salvages the shot gloves off his corpse, so, thanks Lester. Number 39, Catwoman. Now, I'm not contesting the fact that Catwoman is an excellent character within the Arkham universe, but is she an excellent villain? She's certainly less of a threat to Batman and more of a reoccurring annoyance. Selina Kyle makes her debut in Arkham City, putting her cat burglar skills to use immediately as a playable character. Her feud with Two-Face accounts for most of her story arc, although she does cross paths with Bats at one or two convenient points in the game. Arkham Knight, meanwhile, has Catwoman confined to a single building for the whole game, kidnapped by the Riddler and forced to take part in his lethal puzzles. She rarely has the chance to indulge her jewel-thieving habits here, despite being playable once again. In this series at least, her most villainous acts seem to be taken against other villains. Can she really be blamed for destroying Riddler's robot factory and robbing him blind after what he put her through? No, I didn't think so. Number 38, Alberto Falcone. The son of crime lord Carmine Falcone and part of the Falcone crime family, Alberto seems to fancy himself the head of the organisation when his father retires. The only problem is he's kind of a psycho. Though he denies it, sessions with Doctors Hugo Strange and Harleen Quinzel imply him to have dissociative identity disorder, and his holiday killer persona that makes an appearance in The Long Halloween set after Origins is later referenced in Batman Arkham Knight. Alberto only has one scene in Arkham Origins, kidnapped by Penguin in an attempt to compromise Carmine's business. After Batman shows up and is pulled straight into a heated battle with Deathstroke, the unstable Falcone boy is never seen or heard from again. Number 37, Solomon Grundy. He was born on a Monday, christened on Tuesday, married on Wednesday, and killed on whatever day you happen to be playing the video game. Cursed with an eternal 7-day cycle of birth, death, and burial, Cyrus Gold is over 100 years old, and kept as a kind of pet in the basement of the Penguin's nightclub, the Iceberg Lounge. Batman, poisoned by the Joker, seeks Penguin out in search of a cure, and in doing so is lured right into Solomon Grundy's lair. As boss fights in the Arkham series go, this is arguably one of the better ones. His fiery chains can pick off an unprepared player in just a few swings, and Batman's quick-fire gadget mechanics, new for Arkham City, really prove their worth here. But aside from that, there's not really much else to him. All he really does is recite the Solomon Grundy rhyme over and over again. Batman can even get away with killing him and keep his one rule intact, as the hulking zombie eventually just comes back to life. Number 36, Starro. A truly unsettling entry, and likely one that many players didn't know about until a walkthrough showed them where to go, or maybe this video told you that it existed. Starro is the Easter egg to end all Easter eggs in the Arkham Knight prequel DLC, A Matter of Family. As Batgirl, the player is free to explore an already creepy enough abandoned theme park in the middle of the ocean. There are several strange posters around the place promoting a freak show that features a mindless man with a one-eyed starfish stuck to his face. Then you enter an incredibly hard to see grate to find the one behind this strange being, Starro himself. The mind-controlling alien and the first to take on the Justice League is housed in a dark room, pressed up against a cylindrical glass tank and watching closely. He doesn't do anything except stare and stare and stare. You have to wonder how they even got him in the tank in the first place. Number 35, Anarchy. Batman sure didn't get many of the good villains in his early days. Dangerous though they may have been, even planting bombs around Gotham City isn't a guarantee of a memorable tenure under the Dark Knight's radar. As his name suggests, Anarchy tries to make a name for himself as the voice of the people in Arkham Origins. Anti-government, anti-establishment, and seemingly anti-everything else, he rallies followers from Gotham's poorest areas for protests, graffitiing, and general non-conformist debauchery. But he doesn't stop there. Anarchy is totally prepared to resort to actual terrorism in order to make himself heard, and that's when he gets Batman's attention. Anarchy lures Batman to the Solomon Wayne courthouse, where predictably his ego takes quite a literal beatdown. He's then revealed to be just a teenager, which somehow makes us take him even less seriously. It's doubtful his lackeys would have stuck around if they knew their leader was nothing more than a pent-up kid in an unflattering jacket. Number 34, Talia Alghoul. Like Catwoman, Talia Alghoul isn't exactly a villain in the traditional sense. She does seem to genuinely care about Batman, but at the same time she knows his secret identity, and she could sure do some damage with that knowledge if she wanted to. She appears in Batman Arkham City in the League of Assassins' secret base of Wonder City. Overseeing Batman's trials along with her father Ra's, Talia expresses disappointment when her former lover refuses to become the new Demon's Head. Later she fools the Joker into thinking she can offer him immortality, activating a tracker so Batman can follow them to the Monarch Theatre. When Joker is revealed to be an imposter, however, Talia is suddenly shot by the real Joker from a balcony, quickly dying in Batman's arms. Arkham Knight shows her sword on display in the GCPD evidence room, demonstrating her legacy in the eyes of the law. But Bruce, as his guilt clearly shows, could never remember Talia Alghoul as a true force of evil. Number 33, Hammer and Sickle. The Abramovici brothers, known as Hammer and Sickle for their respective weapons of choice, were once conjoined twins but were separated at the arm by the Joker and brought to Gotham to work as his henchmen. Batman first encounters Mr. Hammer at the Joker's hideout, the abandoned Sionis Steel Mill. He appears as little more than an abnormally large one-armed minion, but when his brother Sickle later shows up as one of Penguin's goons, you get the sense that there's more to this than it seems. Not that much more, mind you, but still it really adds to Joker's cruelty, seeing what they had become under his ownership. What's more, a hidden late game scene shows the two brothers sitting stump to stump and expressing their mutual desire to be rejoined. Quite a bittersweet little end to their otherwise one-dimensional story. Number 32, Nissa Ratco. With Talia dead and Ra's on his last legs, for real this time, it's not surprising that the other daughter of the demon would show up to try and sort things out. The return of Rachael Ghoul in Arkham Knight's Season of Infamy expansion sees Nissa leading a rival faction against those loyal to him, trying to prevent him from accessing the Lazarus Pit and regaining his strength. She offers Batman a choice: to side with her and prevent Ra's from rising again, or to help Ra's and face the consequences. If you choose to accept Nissa's offer, Batman destroys the Lazarus Pit and convinces Nissa to let her father die naturally, despite her wish to kill him herself. But if you give Ra's the Lazarus, he swiftly kills his daughter and disappears in a cloud of smoke. Though highly dangerous and volatile, Nissa is not really evil. Allowing Ra's to die results in her promising to disband the League, after which she and her followers leave Gotham, never to return. Number 31, Deacon Blackfire. The people of Gotham seem to be rather an impressionable sort, at least within the criminal underworld, and with flocks of aimless people looking for an answer comes an opportunist with the cunning and charisma to indoctrinate them all into his evil cause. Joseph Blackfire is one such person, using religious ideology to brainwash Gotham City's homeless and underprivileged into crazed homicidal zealots. His cults capture the investigative reporter Jack Ryder, and Deacon Blackfire prepares to sacrifice him on an altar before Batman shows up to take care of his horde of followers. Even when locked up in a GCPD holding cell, Blackfire continues to proselytize like a mad preacher, claiming to be over 100 years old and knowing the secret to immortality. So convincing are his words that you might even start to believe them yourself, but then with mentions of his name all the way back to the 1920s, could he actually be telling the truth? Number 30, Firefly. As far as costume design goes, both iterations of Firefly in the Arkham series get 10 out of 10 for effort. Aside from that, there's not exactly a wildfire of depth about this airborne pyromaniac. Arkham Knight reveals that Garfield Lynns, once a pyrotechnic expert at Gotham's Panessa Studios, killed the studio owner after being made redundant and took to the streets with stolen military-grade equipment as Firefly. His aptitude for arson has left him with horrific burns across his entire body. Firefly's time in both Arkham Origins and Arkham Knight is pretty fleeting. Even with an outrageous bounty on Batman's head in the former, the man seems more concerned with starting fires and causing general chaos than hunting down the Caped Crusader. He's clearly insane and in possession of some massively dangerous gear, but there's really not much else to him than that. In both games, Batman deals with Lynns very anticlimactically, destroying his jetpack and knocking him into next week. Number 29, Ferris Boyle. Fans of Batman the Animated Series will be familiar with this despicable excuse for a humanitarian. Featuring in the Arkham Origins DLC expansion Cold Cold Heart, Boyle is the CEO of Goth Corp, responsible for the inadvertent creation of Mr. Freeze. Victor Fries was once a cryogenicist for Boyle, tasked with designing weapons in secret. He did so, but simultaneously underwent research to cure his deathly ill wife Nora. When Boyle found out, he confiscated the frozen Nora, and Victor's attempts to fight back exposed him to harmful chemicals, leaving him unable to survive outside of a sub-zero environment. Boyle has no remorse, as he's shown accepting a Humanitarian of the Year award on New Year's Eve, an event that Freeze series crashes very unsubtly. Batman, learning the truth behind GothCorp, is almost killed by Boyle's cryogas, but manages to break free and take him into GCPD custody. A brilliant homage to one of the animated series' best episodes, Ferris Boyle proves that not all villains need superpowers and outlandish outfits. Number 28, Quincy Sharp. Created specifically for the Arkham franchise, Quincy Sharp first appears in Batman Arkham Asylum as the hospital's warden. He's shown to be stern and unflappable, but otherwise relatively inconspicuous. However, as Batman uncovers strange artifacts scattered around Arkham Island pertaining to the spirit of Arkham, it's later revealed that Sharp, obsessed with the asylum's founder, Amadeus Arkham, and this spirit are one and the same. Sharp refuses to accept his schizophrenic tendencies and as a result has developed a split personality manically devoted to, quote, cleaning up Gotham, meaning killing its undesirables on the sly. Somehow he manages to become mayor by the time of Arkham City, having suggested the idea in the first place and turning a blind eye to Hugo Strange's unspeakable experiments on the inmates. On the flip side, he then finds himself trapped in the treacherous prison city, and the people trapped in there with him, many of whom were patients at Arkham Asylum, don't take too kindly to his presence. Number 27, Simon Stag. Well, I'll be. It's another wealthy CEO with less morality in his little finger than the entire maximum security wing of Blackgate Prison. Is Wayne Industries the only reputable corporate body in Gotham? Stag Enterprises is known for its innovative approaches to creating sustainable energy sources. The company operates mainly out of two huge airships hovering above central Gotham, which probably explains why people begin to speculate about just what it gets up to. And turns out they were right to be suspicious. When Batman pays a visit to the airships, he discovers that Simon Stag has been authorizing human testing, keeping skeletons suspended in tanks all over the labs. He's also in cahoots with some questionable clients, his company having manufactured the cloudburst mechanism that allows Scarecrow to saturate Gotham City in his fear toxin. Obviously, Batman can't have that, and Stag is sent right to the GCPD. Perhaps sharing a cell with some of Gotham's biggest psychopaths will teach him a thing or two about perspective. Number 26, Azrael. One of Batman Arkham City's most intriguing side quests sees Batman run into a mystery onlooker at various points around Gotham. This armor-clad enigma reveals he's been watching the Dark Knight for a long time, explaining a little more at each tricky-to-spot location. At the end of the quest, he reveals himself as Azrael and tells of a prophecy concerning the end of Batman, promising that they will meet again. And meet again they do in Batman Arkham Knight. Azrael leaves burning bat symbols across the city, offering himself as Batman's successor once this night is through. Bats uncovers more about him each time, eventually learning his real name, Michael Lane, and his association with the Order of Saint Dumas. Azrael shows up at the clock tower just as Batman discovers a hidden brainwashing technique by the Order, and the player taking control of the Sacred Knight is given a choice: break the Sword of Sin and renounce the Order, or use it to kill Batman. Obviously then, what sets him apart from others on this list is that he's only the villain if you make him so. Number 25, Copperhead. Only a couple of Black Mask's 8 assassins really get the exposure they deserve in Arkham Origins, despite them basically being the main villains of the game, and Copperhead is certainly not one of them. This female interpretation of the DC Comics character is a highly acrobatic contortionist with a half ninja, half succubus kind of vibe. In keeping with her name, she possesses many serpentine qualities, from a forked tongue to talons containing a deadly poison. Batman finds himself on the receiving end of the latter, which causes him to hallucinate while trying to synthesize an antidote. The sequence would have been more effective if it A, dialed back a bit on the whole guilty hero cliche, and B, wasn't so reminiscent of an almost identical scene in Arkham Asylum caused by Scarecrow's fear toxin. Copperhead's part of the game culminates in a battle against wave after wave of her copies. After that, Batman locks her away in a shipping container and the story carries on swiftly without her. Number 24, Clayface. The final boss of Batman Arkham City is an ingenious bait and switch, and unless you played the game before and are looking out for any hints, there's almost no way you could have guessed how this ending would turn out. Unbeknownst to anyone but himself and Harley Quinn, the Joker, deathly ill from his overdose of Titan in the previous game, enlists the shape-shifting Basil Karlo, aka Clayface, to pose as him while he waits for Batman to find a cure. Karlo first appears in a cell in Arkham Asylum, taking the form of Batman's allies Aaron Cash and Commissioner Gordon. The debut of his Clayface form, however, comes in the finale of Arkham City, where Talia Alghoul stabs Joker through the chest, only for him to melt into clay and reveal his true identity. Karlo, formerly a stage stage actor considered impersonating the Joker the role of a lifetime. But that role is soon brought to an end when Batman destroys his physical body in the Lazarus Pit. Number 23, Black Mask. This character is the very definition of a mixed bag within the Arkhamverse. One minute he's right in the spotlight, the next barely even a cameo. Arkham Origins sets up Roman Sionis' Black Mask as the game's main villain, as he's the one who puts out the bounty on Batman and lures the 8 assassins to Gotham City. But as it transpires, Sionis is actually imprisoned, and the one posing as him later turns out to be, the Joker, obviously. With that rather pointless twist out of the way, Batman frees Sionis and he goes about retaking his criminal empire. In a climactic fight in an old Gotham church, Sionis is defeated and locked away in Blackgate Prison. His appearances after that are nothing short of pitiful. First, he's given a meagre cameo in the intro to Arkham City. After that, he shows up in a Robin exclusive challenge map. And finally, he serves as the main antagonist of Arkham Knight's 10-minute long Red Hood story pack. Woohoo! What's more, the games keep going between different looks for him. Continuity, the developers must have said. Don't know what that is. Number 22, ManBat. With its many well-crafted homages to the 90s animated series, the Arkhamverse wouldn't be complete without featuring the first villain to ever darken that show's doorway. The best thing about this side quest in Arkham Knight is that it takes you completely by surprise. You're just gliding around the open world, minding your own business, when you make the mistake of grappling up to a rooftop and suddenly you're inches away from the bat-like monstrosity shrieking right in your face. No matter how many times you played the game, I defy you not to jump out of your skin when ManBat makes his debut. After several run-ins with the creature, Batman discovers that ManBat is really Dr. Kirk Langstrom, a scientist attempting to splice human and bat DNA as a cure for deafness. He tested the formula on himself and his transformation resulted in the death of his wife Francine. Batman manages to restore Langstrom to his human form and bring him into the GCPD, where he spends the rest of the game drowning in grief and remorse. But is this really the end of ManBat? Well, maybe you should boot the game up next Halloween and find out. Number 21, Deadshot. Floyd Lawton is one of the Black Mask's 8 assassins in Arkham Origins. What makes him dangerous is the apathy he holds for all living things, including himself. Diagnosed with clinical depression and suicidal tendencies, Deadshot doesn't care if he lives or dies. And with nothing to lose, he puts his all into every job he takes. His role in Arkham Origins is regrettably mostly relegated to a side quest. He waits for Batman at Gotham Merchant's Bank, where he uses his bullet ricocheting skills to try and outsmart his opponent. Try being the operative word. Later he shows up in Arkham City sporting a new look but fulfilling much of the same purpose. He's not the best villain for sure, but he's still far from the worst. Number 20, Killer Croc. A rare example of an enemy who has appeared in every major installment of the Batman Arkham series, made even rarer by his constant evolution, literally as the story unfolds. Waylon Jones, born with a progressive genetic disorder that makes him more and more reptilian over time, eventually embraced his animalistic side, devouring men and holding a deep-seated hatred for humanity. When he's one of Black Mask's assassins in Arkham Origins, his condition is still relatively nascent. Arkham Asylum sees a drastic change in him, having bitten off the hand of security guard Aaron Cash and becoming more beast than man. Batman's time in Killer Croc's lair is one of the most intense sequences in the entire series, requiring the Dark Knight to step lightly and slowly to avoid rousing the beast in the waters below. A brief cameo in Arkham City later, Croc reappears in the Season of Infamy expansion of Arkham Knight, where, held captive in the prison airship of Ironhide, he's brutally tortured by Warden Rankin, the experiments greatly exacerbating his condition. Batman is forced to subdue him and take him to the GCPD, but make sure to drop Rankin off for good measure too. Number 19, Professor Pig. Oftentimes villains have a deep and tragic motivator behind their unspeakable deeds. In other cases, they're just completely mad. Professor Pig is one of these. Described in-game as an obsessive perfectionist, Laszlo Valentine was a neurosurgeon turned ringmaster of the travelling Circus of Strange, whose schizophrenic tendencies resulted in a split personality named Professor Pig. He began to abduct people on his travels, seeking to remove their imperfections by turning them into mindless Dollartrons. Batman tracks Pig down by following a trail of strung-up bodies around the city, each discarded for being imperfect. At the Pretty Doll Parlour on Founders Island, he's set upon by Pig's Dollartrons, but manages to fight them off and incapacitate the Professor with one mask-smashing punch to the face. Aptly voiced by the wacky A-Team actor Dwight Schwartz, Professor Pig is one of the most insane people Gotham has ever seen. Let's hope the padded cell he'll spend the rest of his days in lives up to his outrageously high standards. Number 18, Victor Zsasz. Speaking of Gotham's finest psychopaths, Victor Zsasz is first seen as an inmate of Arkham Asylum, escaping when the place is taken over by the Joker and holding several staff members hostage. He later appears in a hallucination caused by Scarecrow's fear toxin. In Arkham City, his role is expanded into the main antagonist of the side mission Cold Cool Killer. Zsasz contacts Batman through payphones across the city, instructing him to reach another phone before Zsasz kills a victim. It's during that quest that his backstory is revealed. Once a wealthy socialite whose parents were murdered, like Bruce Wayne, Victor gambled all of his money away and soon discovered his true passion in life: endless, agonizing, indiscriminate killing. The tally marks on his body represent each person he's killed, making him one of the most prolific mass murderers in Gotham's history. And though he doesn't prove much of a physical threat to Batman, his creativity and cunning add a whole new level of danger to the man's insatiable bloodlust. Number 17, Calendar Man. Like looking at a shark in an aquarium, it's not what this man can do right now that unnerves you. Rather, it's what he did in the past and what he'll do again if he ever gets out. Calendar Man's main appearance is in Arkham City, locked in a cell below the Solomon Wayne courthouse. A serial killer by the name of Julian Day, he is obsessed with dates and times, planning gruesome themed murders on specific holidays throughout the year. He sits idly chanting the 30 days hath September mnemonic until Batman approaches, and depending on the time of the year, tells a story of one of his past holiday killings. It's only when he's told all he has to tell that he shares his final secret with the Dark Knight before escaping off screen. I was there at the beginning and I will be there at your end. And he's a man of his word. During the Nightfall protocol of Arkham Knight, Calendar Man can be seen among the crowd outside Wayne Manor right before the building is blown to pieces. A truly disturbed individual, but an honest one at least. Number 16, Bane. Another polarising entry on this list. Bane sure has his ups and downs throughout the Arkham series. One of the great subversions of his character archetype in the comics was his fierce intellect to go with his superhuman strength. But here, the degree to which that balance is pulled off varies quite dramatically. The most faithful portrayal of Bane is in Arkham Origins, where as another Black Mask assassin, he tries to deal with his addiction to the performance-enhancing drug Venom by creating a replacement, TN1. During his research, he comes extremely close to figuring out Batman's secret identity and may very well have done so had the effects of the TN1 not caused him permanent memory loss. In Arkham Asylum, Bane is experimented on by Dr. Penelope Young to create the superior Titan drug. Predictably, he becomes addicted to this instead, and unfortunately in both Asylum and City, his portrayal makes him seem little more than a simple-minded brute. Still, he's better than the Bane in Batman and Robin, although that's not really much of a bar to clear, is it? Number 15, Deathstroke. Arkham Origins is commonly regarded by fans as the weakest in the series, and for the most part their reasoning is well-founded. Like Bane, however, there are certain characters who are given a far better role in this title than any of its successors, and Deathstroke is one of them. A standout moment in Origins is the duel between Batman and Slade Wilson, unquestionably the deadliest of the 8 assassins to answer Black Mask's call. The fight is extremely fast-paced and evenly matched, making the one-eyed super soldier feel like a truly worthy opponent. So you can imagine fans' disappointment when Deathstroke shows up again in Arkham Knight, expressing his eagerness to go toe-to-toe with the Bat again, only to chase him around in a tank for a bit and get knocked out after a single punch. Granted, he's not as young as he used to be, but shouldn't such a legendary assassin fight with a little more honour than that? Number 14, Mad Hatter. One of Batman's longest-running foes in the Arkham series is Jervis Tetch, a man so obsessed with Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland that he's rebranded himself as the character of the Mad Hatter from the story. In each game he appears in, his schemes involve nuanced methods of hypnotism, transporting Batman and others to fantastical storybook-like landscapes. Tetch speaks in nonsensical rhymes in keeping with Carroll's writing, and he repeatedly looks for Batman to join him on his mad journeys as his Alice. Regrettably, Mad Hatter's appearances are often pretty short-lived. Although these surreal hypnotic environments are a joy to behold, the player doesn't have a lot of time to enjoy them, as Batman is very quick to dispel of the illusions and apprehend their creator. Even so, there's no denying that Tetch has made quite the name for himself in the Arkhamverse. Every time he gets beaten down, he just keeps on getting back up again. Maybe someone ought to send this weirdo down the rabbit hole for good. Number 13, Hush. He's one of Gotham's most ingenious villains, posing a threat not only to Batman himself, but also his secret identity, Bruce Wayne. Thomas Elliot was a childhood friend of Bruce's, albeit an extremely psychologically disturbed one. His attempt to kill his own parents failed, at least partially, as Bruce's father, the Dr. Thomas Wayne, was able to save Elliot's mother. As a result, Elliot developed a lifelong hatred of the Wayne family. In Arkham City, Batman comes across a number of dead bodies whose faces have been surgically removed, and the trail leads him to Hush, an unknown man with bandages covering his whole head. He takes off the bandages and reveals himself to be Bruce Wayne. Batman deduces that Elliot cut off the faces of select people to create an exact likeness of his hated rival. Hush then takes his leave mysteriously. What havoc could he possibly wreak in the next game? Sadly, next to nothing. His QuickTime Events side mission is over in the blink of an eye and may as well have not happened at all. What a waste of time. Number 12, Shiva. The influence of the League of Assassins in Gotham is widespread indeed, and Lady Shiva, a high-ranking member of the League who trained the likes of Richard Dragon and Nissa Ratco, was behind Quincy Sharp's reopening of Arkham Asylum, effectively setting in motion the majority of events in the Arkhamverse. In person, however, she's only seen in Arkham Origins before any of these events came to pass. The last of Black Mask's 8 assassins, Shiva isn't as concerned with the $50 million bounty as she is with testing Batman on behalf of her master, Rachael Ghoul. The trial she puts the Dark Knight through eventually culminates in combat between Batman and her elite guard, and herself included. Batman passes the test and comes out on top, and Shiva allows him to live, silently convinced that he's the one her master has been looking for, even in spite of his no-killing rule. After this, Shiva is never seen again, which, considering how much of a behind-the-scenes driving force she is in the series, is both surprising and something of a disappointment. Number 11, Two-Face. Although he's supposed to be one of Batman's most iconic enemies, the measly amount of time Two-Face spends in the spotlight throughout the Arkham games is frankly shocking. Only receiving a superficial mention in Arkham Asylum, both of Harvey Dent's split personalities make their debut in Arkham City, having taken over the Solomon Wayne courthouse. After Catwoman steals from him, he prepares to publicly execute her as a show of power amongst the inmates. Batman, however, shows up to scupper his plans, and Catwoman leaves 3 deep scratches on Harvey's good side. After this, Two-Face appears only in Catwoman's story expansion, where despite being the main antagonist, he's still only in it at the very end. Arkham Knight relegates him to an even sadder role, robbing banks while everyone else is more concerned with killing Batman. The writer's neglect for him is unfortunate, but in terms of characterization, Troy Baker's dual-voiced portrayal of both of Two-Face's two faces is aloof, smarmy, yet sufficiently terrifying at the same time. Number 10, Poison Ivy. Pamela Eiley, aka Poison Ivy, is first introduced as an inmate of Arkham Asylum. She cares little for the Joker's plans and only springs into action when her precocious plants come under threat. After Joker injects her with Titan, Poison Ivy's roots engulf the entire Arkham Island, reducing it to an overgrown, inhospitable state in which it remains for the rest of the series. Once she moves to Arkham City, she claims an abandoned building on the edge of town where she hopes to stay in peace with her plant life, until Catwoman's appearance riles her up, that is. But it's in Arkham Knight that Isley really comes into her own. As the cloudburst disperses Scarecrow's fear gas all over the city, Batman enlists Poison Ivy's help to find a plant-based antitoxin. Though she doesn't care about the human lives in Gotham, the toxin is equally harmful to her plants, so she agrees to assist in locating the city's most ancient underground roots. However, her efforts drain every last ounce of her energy, and she flakes away to nothing in Batman's arms. She may have been acting in her own self-interest, but did Poison Ivy really die a villain? Number 9, Penguin. A rather different take on the classic Batman baddie, but with enough of his comic familiarity for him to stand up to the original DC incarnation. The Oswald Cobblepot of the Arkham series is one bona fide Cockney geezer. Known in the criminal underground for his black market weapon racketeering, Penguin first appears in Arkham City, where he runs a nightclub called the Iceberg Lounge, complete with a pet shark and an immortal zombie in the basement. He's no stranger to a fight either, and half of a bottle lodged in his eye socket is a testament to that. Returning in Arkham Knight, Penguin owns a company named North Refrigeration, a reference to his voice actor Nolan North, which is really a front for his business of selling weapons to the Arkham Knight's militia. Together with Nightwing, Batman systematically shuts all of his bases down and throws the vertically challenged scoundrel straight into the slammer. You won't be needing an umbrella where you're going. Number 8, Arkham Knight. The titular character of Batman Arkham Knight gets near to top billing for a reason. He's got more of an MO than anyone to be after Batman's head, and he's here in Gotham City with an entire army just to collect his prize. Sporting armor and a high-tech visor in deliberate resemblance to his foe, the Arkham Knight is very forthcoming about his control over the city. His militia sets up checkpoints and watchtowers right across the 3 islands of central Gotham, while automated battle drones patrol both the streets and the skies in search of the Bat. He's Batman's equal in virtually every way: speed, tactics, fighting style, intelligence, because he claims to know the man like none of his other enemies ever could. And why? Because he's the former Robin, Jason Todd, that's why. Yes, his reveal is really quite underwhelming, especially considering that he later becomes the Red Hood, and so could have easily have just been him the whole time. That aside though, there's no denying that he puts his absolute all into his crusade against the Dark Knight, and he could have done much worse on the costume front. Nice. Number 7, Hugo Strange. When a supervillain is able to work out his enemy's secret identity through nothing other than sheer intellect, how could they not be near the top of the list? Add to that peak physical condition and a taste for medical experimentation that often borders on psychopathic, and you have Professor Hugo Strange. One of the key figures behind the scenes of Arkham City, Strange practically has free reign over everyone in the prison, having his Tiger Guards round up inmates for his intense psych evaluations under the blissful ignorance of Mayor Quincy Sharp. Strange's master plan is called Protocol 10, and the long and short of it is that it involves killing everyone in Arkham City. Batman makes his way to the archaic Wonder Tower, picking off waves of Tiger Guards as he goes. When he gets to the top, Hugo Strange is betrayed by Rachael Ghoul, the real head honcho here, and stabbed through the chest. Just before he dies, Strange orders the computer to blow up the tower with the passcode Wayne. If he hadn't met his end when he did, how much damage could the Professor have done with Batman's most guarded secrets? Number 6, Rachael Ghoul. And so we turn to the head honcho in question, the 600-year-old head of the demon Rachael Ghoul. By the time Batman runs into Ra's in Arkham City, the man appears old and weary, confessing that he's frightened of what his repeated use of the Lazarus Pit has turned him into. He wants Batman to kill him, for good this time, so that the League of Assassins can have a worthy male heir. Obviously, Batman has neither an interest in killing Ra's nor running a legion of eco-terrorists, so he refuses. When Ra's reveals himself to be the mastermind behind Protocol 10, it becomes clear that the destruction of Arkham City is actually his long-term goal of purging Gotham of its corruption. Hugo Strange's actions send Ra's falling to his death, but in Arkham Knight, thanks to the Lazarus Pit, he's kind of alive once again. Batman has the choice to destroy the pit and let him die, or restore him to health, which involves him making a run for it. After over 600 years, it should be pretty obvious what the right thing to do here is. On his deathbed in the GCPD, Rachael Ghoul's last words to Batman are, "Detective, proud of you." Number 5, Scarecrow. One thing that's universally agreed on among Arkham fans is that Scarecrow's role in Batman Arkham Asylum is the absolute high point of the game. To complement the asylum's chilling atmosphere, Jonathan Crane lurks in the shadows, occasionally slipping the unaware hero a dose of his fear toxin and leaving him fighting for his life in increasingly abstract internal hellscapes. After the final one of these, Scarecrow is suddenly grabbed by Killer Croc and pulled down into the sewer. Though presumed dead, he shows up again in Arkham Knight, issuing a citywide warning on Halloween and evacuating virtually the whole of Gotham. His run-in with Killer Croc left him greatly scarred, and he arranged his tattered skin to resemble his original mask from the asylum. Using the Cloudburst, Crane floods the city with his fear toxin, watching its inhabitants tear each other apart. The end of the game sees Scarecrow do what no other villain has ever done: unmask the Batman. With his secret identity known to the world, Batman is subjected to one last dose of toxin. His mind wrestles through an elaborate dream sequence before Scarecrow is given a taste of his own medicine, rendered catatonic through fear of his nemesis. Number 4, Harley Quinn. The sidekick and girlfriend, for want of a better word, of the Clown Prince of Crime, Harley's past as an accomplished psychiatrist does not make her any less insane in the present. Harley Quinn appears in every main series Arkham game, with her role in the story getting bigger and bigger each time. Her relationship with the Joker plays out much like it does in the animated series, that is to say, very unhealthily. After his death, Harley goes through a dark and violent mourning phase, wearing a black veil and ditching her baseball bat for a good bit of firepower. But she's all back to normal by the time of Arkham Knight, her army of goons making her one of the most powerful criminals in Gotham. The Harley Quinn story pack also explores the dichotomy between Harley Quinn and Dr. Harlan Quinzel, the rational part of her mind, giving her a whole new dimension on top of her increasingly domineering presence. Number 3, the Riddler. If there was a reward in the Arkhamverse for the keenest attention to detail, this guy would surely get it. Then again, he'd likely question why there was ever a contest like this in the first place. With textbook narcissism, genius level intellect, and an obsessive compulsive need to prove it, Edward Nygma probably works harder than any other villain out there to get Batman's attention. In Arkham Origins, an early incarnation of the character called himself Enigma, but from Arkham Asylum onwards, he's known to all of Gotham as the Riddler. Each game is littered with Riddler trophies, all of which Batman must collect to be able to put an end to Riddler's schemes. Starting in Arkham City, he also builds elaborate puzzles to test the Dark Knight's gadget skills. He considers every defeat a personal insult, resulting in his attempts to outsmart his opponents becoming more elaborate with each subsequent game. After his humiliation in Arkham City, the Riddler goes above and beyond to bring down Batman, designing lethal underground race courses and constructing an entire robot army to help set up riddles. His determination is unparalleled, and even when Bats locks him up, the incorrigible man refuses to admit that he's been beaten. Number 2, the Joker. Sorry, excuse me while I wring out my t-shirt after your collective spit take. Yes, you probably thought the Joker being at the top of this list was a foregone conclusion. And of course, Mark Hamill's reprisal of his animated series role makes for one of the best incarnations of the Clown Prince of Crime in any medium. But exceptional though his time in the Arkham series was, it was definitely not perfect. Is anyone going to claim that the final boss of Arkham Asylum was a fitting usage of the Joker character? Despite an immaculate portrayal up until that point, the Joker injecting himself with Titan and becoming a hideous mutated beast was nothing short of a stupid idea. What it did do, however, was set in motion the events of Arkham City, which culminates in Joker's shocking death from Titan poisoning. And although it's understandable for the writers to have wanted Batman's archenemy back in the last last chapter of the series, the Joker is a bit too present in Arkham Knight, especially considering he's not alive. But on the whole, these are minor things compared to all that the Arkhamverse did right with the character. Joker's influence is felt long after his death among heroes and villains of Gotham City alike. And number 1, Mr. Freeze. If there's one character in the Arkham series whose portrayal and story arc never goes wrong for even a second, it's the cold-hearted cryogenics expert Mr. Freeze. From Origins all the way to Knight, this version of Freeze is arguably the best iteration of the character since the animated series. The Emmy Award-winning episode of the show, Heart of Ice, is lovingly recreated in the Arkham Origins DLC Cold Cold Heart, detailing the tragic backstory of Dr. Victor Freeze and the accident that led to his frosty condition. Freeze shows up again in Arkham City, giving Batman a truly memorable fight before agreeing to help him with a cure for Titan. Batman locates his frozen wife, Nora, urging him to abandon his criminal activities and leave the city. In Arkham Knight, Freeze returns seeking Batman's aid when Nora's cryo chamber is taken by the Arkham Knight's militia. Though Batman manages to find her, the chamber is damaged and Nora awakens from cryostasis. She tells Freeze that she'd rather spend her last days with him than face another lifetime in ice, and together they set sail out of Gotham for good. Mr. Freeze is neither insane nor truly evil. His actions are driven by pure love for his wife, and the Arkham series conveys this flawlessly from start to finish. With Nora at his side no matter for how long, perhaps this pained man can finally find peace. This was a monster of a list on Arkham, and if you've made it to the end, then props to you. Clearly you're a fan of this series. You should check out this quiz we did on the Arkham series. Spoiler alert, I sucked, but some other people were much better at it. Don't forget to like this video, leave a comment down below on your favourite villains from the Arkham games. I've been Si for WhatCulture, and have a good week.